So, in part one, I've explained how these paraliminal transmissions are a stronger stimulus to the brain and that they override the actual words that are being said by the real people in the vicinity when these paraliminals are being transmitted to rewire the brain associations, how it processes words and sounds, so that the target is hearing the transmitted words, which are often very offensive and very particular to the target. The target, the TI, is hearing them from the people at a distance away. I'm going to explain some of my experiences with this and how this came to my aware, how I became aware of this. Obviously, you know, in the beginning you just think it's people gang stalking you, and I did this. I was fooled by this because obviously they use real people, and if you see real people so many times gang stalking you, and then these are replaced by the same voices that you record to these people, but these voices are coming from places you can't see, such as behind your fence or behind some trees or something, or just out of sight, then obviously you're going to think, well, you've seen the real people doing it, so you know, you're not going to. What it actually is transmissions, but this is a little bit different. I'll explain how this has been used to deceive and dupe. So hearing these offensive comments, which I assumed were coming from here, which was, say, 50 feet away. Well, it was actually more. So it was about 100 feet away, 150 feet away. And it was a large, large group of people all making these very particular offensive comments that I've been hearing over and over again, said in exactly the same way of phrasing them, everything. So I recorded this, and people told me when I played it to them that they could hear something, but they couldn't quite make out what was being said, catch the odd word. So what I did was I took my recorder, because obviously I wanted to get a clear recording over. I think it was at this point, the particular situation I'm talking about was about 100, 150 feet away. It was a large group of people. And I hid it. I had my recorder there, very good one. And I took it over and I hid it behind some trees, some bushes. And I went back where I stood. And where I stood, I was hearing all the familiar intel abuse, etc. And I was pretty confident that my recorder, all the way over there, right near this large, large group of people, was going to record everything very clearly, because it was right near them, yeah? Right where I perceived the sound to be coming from. So I trot back over, pick up my recorder after a certain amount of time, and play it back. That is when I discovered that the voices I'd heard were indeed this group of people. The sound was exactly the same. The sound was exactly the same. However, at the same time as the sound, there was a kind of a not too loud, but it wasn't the noise floor of the recorder. At the same time as the sound of these people's voices was, I'll just say this is very important, these people's voices were not saying the offensive comments. They were not saying the things that I heard. But the sound of the voices was the same. But the words they were saying were not the words I heard. What I heard was also, in addition to that, was paraliminals, which sounded just like background noise. You know, got a large group of people, you're going to have background noise. But because I've been sensitized to these particular words and things and these sounds of these voices that were used in these paraliminals and by the gang stalkers, I recognize them. Yep, they use the same voices to transmit these paraliminals. They use the old Irishman's voice, the older Irish accent of a woman, and a very, very nasty younger woman's voice that tends to always be shouting, very abusive. They use these in the paraliminal transmission, which sounded just like some sort of background noise from these people, and it sort of melded in. However, when I focused on the sound of for instance, the lower sound of the old Irishman's voice, and I looped it to hear what he was saying. At this point, I believed he was in with the crowd of these people. I looped it. It was actually the words that I heard at the time from these people. So what was happening? Oh, the other two were, one was the words that I was being programmed to hear from these people. And another one was the very nasty shouting was basically abuse. And that was describing something visual, something really awful connected to the word. And the other one was telling me how I'd feel, how it feels. Oh, it feels whatever, you know. I think it wasn't that. I think it was you want to die, something like that. But they was addressing, one was the word that they was swapping for these. And I must point out that these crossed. So that when one of them paraliminals, when I looped it, it was over the top. It was said at exactly the same time, simultaneous, as the ordinary sounds and speech from here. So they were sort of melded together. So it's all at the same time. But upon looping it, like I said, it was discovered to be some kind of programming. And this offensive intel was heard every time I believed that I heard this. This happened on several other occasions. So what was actually happening is the sound of these people, their voices, very unique and distinct, were being heard by, say, for example, this part of the brain. The sound was being processed normally by the neurons and the part of the brain that processes sound. But somehow the words that these people were saying, which were nothing to do with me, not what my recorder picked up, were overridden by these paraliminal transmissions, this paraliminal input. These words transmitted in the paraliminals were stronger, had a stronger effect on my brain. So the part that deals with words, that was linked to the sound. So you have this unnatural mapping, rewiring, where the paraliminal transmissions, including the subconscious manipulation, because it's a paraliminal, and also the intel, what I've told you, they said, the influences of that, plus the priming that's previously happened due to sensitization, and the priming that occurred over a long period of time with the audio that was submitted to me, as well as the gangstalkers saying it over and over again. So anyway, I've discussed all that in part one, how it was done, how it works. So I was basically, the recorder captured completely innocent, harmless conversations, but it also captured these transmissions over at the same time, which sounded just like background noise, until you looped the particular comments and I found that they were actually kind of programming, kind of hypnosis. Now that was when I began to do my investigations, that this wasn't exactly all it seemed to be. And another occasion, there's many, but I'll just give two for now. I was in a bar and sat in a quiet booth, and about 30 feet away was a group of very smartly dressed people, I'd say about mid-30s, 40s, and about 5, 6 of them, and they was all laughing and joking. And after a very short time of entering the bar, I began to hear the predictable insults, comments that are so sick and unimaginably sadistic and petty. It's just ridiculous. But they obviously was meant for me because they included my name and all the other so-called, what I call triggers, to let me know what's going on. And I had my recorder on me. I was sat in the booth. I went over. This is where it's distant dependent, like what happened in the previous what I've just illustrated was that the sounds were nothing like that. So it's occurring around the target. I'll explain that. So I went over to the bar where these people were stood. And as I crossed this sort of like invisible line, say about 10, 12 feet away from these people, there, that represents the invisible line that I crossed. It completely stopped. All this stopped. It was like, boom. And I kept my eyes on the people all the time. So I knew that they didn't go, oh, shut up, be quiet, she's coming, she's coming. There wasn't time to do that. And I felt a kind of a lifting around the head area, a release of tension or pressure. And the world was perceived as normal again. These people were not saying these horrible and sadistic things in my name. And everything was just like it used to be before I began to get this targeting. However, remember I had my recorder on me. However, when I went back to my booth, it started up again. And when I moved to another seat, obviously I didn't want to hear all this nonsense, I moved to another seat, it started up again, but this time it sounded like people, again, 30, 40 foot away, a completely different group of people, 30, 40 foot away. And that is obviously to make you think that the whole bar is infested with gang stalkers. I'm not saying it isn't, because on occasion they have done that with real people. And some of them sit quite close to you, so there's no mistaking it for this technology. However, this, again, when I got home and played the recorder back, hard disk, these strangers were just having, yes, they were laughing and joking, not about the things I heard. The same with the other people when I moved to a different place. But again, what was evident on the recorder were some kind of background noise, which I recognised through tone mainly, and it was mixed in. And it, again, these were paraliminals. And at the same time, as a person happened to say something like laughing, ha ha ha, blah blah blah, instead of blah blah blah, was heard the she will die or whatever it was. Yeah, not nice things, I can tell you, but they're repetitive. And it was obviously these transmissions, so it was all happening in here. And again, you have the line that if you cross, the distance cuts this off. And then it will start up again as perceived from another. It's always got to be, this transmission is treated or done in the brain in such a way that it is always people that are some distance away. Obviously, because if you see them, you'll be able to see it's not the stuff that's coming out of their mouths, which is what I did when I went close to these people. I've had it before, and I've actually discussed this, where I had to go around a corner, and as soon as the building came in sight, where all the noise was coming from, the yard, it stopped. And then when I went back, it started up again. And again, when you leave the recorder where the source of the sound, where your brain is telling you, your ears are telling you that the source of the sound, the distance the source of the sound is coming from, you leave your recorder there, it picks up just ordinary conversation. Because it's a transmission. It is a paraliminal transmission, and it sort of programs or activates your brain to work in a way that it's not meant to, and it takes priority over the word part of your brain. It's a very, very sick technology. I can only assume, as it's used in very busy and public places, that the intention of using this technology isn't just to terrorise the person and drive them mad. It's also to make them believe that large groups of people are against them and make them paranoid. And one would presume that the effect of that would be for the person, the victim, not to frequent these public places. So it's probably being used whether it's being used as an experiment on me, I'm not sure. But most likely it's being used as one, a system of control to dissuade people from going into very busy public places. Also, two, it's obviously, it can't be denied, it's being used to get people out of society and destroy them. And three, it's not unlikely that this is the way false flag terrorists are created. These people that go out and just shoot a load of people or just go and knife a load of people in supermarkets. They do use this in supermarkets or places where it's busy, which shows that they don't really care about the general public. It's not all about the general public. It's not all about law and order and stuff like that. It's about creating havoc and chaos. And I really do think it's about trying to get people to act out and not just get them off the streets. One officer, as I've said in other audio, he actually wrote out false information that I had a previous conviction for a violent offence, which I don't have. And it was shortly after that that all this sort of stuff started and the gang stalking started. And I'm just wondering if, in order to put this into effect, they had to have somebody that they thought was violent or dangerous. But it also goes with the question of, if you did think somebody was violent or dangerous, why would you do this to them in this way? Why would you provoke them? That's the correct word I was looking for. Why would you provoke them in this way, wherever they go? Either to get them to act out and do something stupid, which would probably, if the person was like that, if they didn't have any ability to think before they act, if they was just some kind of emotional type of animal where they were able to weigh things up and process a situation, if they didn't have that faculty, then that way of working, then obviously they'd just go over and perhaps cause a fight or something. And who knows how that would end? Could end up on the front pages of the newspaper or something. So whoever's in operation of this, it's not done to create law and order. It's not done to help the target in any way. It's definitely not, I can tell you now. It is done to ruin the target's life, possibly create false flag terrorism, and increase, the stuff that's going on, like, around us, which just makes us more traumatized every time we read something like that in the papers. Why are all these people doing this? I suspect through this. I really do. Also, I'm not sure if the brain has been, in order for this to work, if certain parts of the brain have been damaged in a controlled way in order for this to sort of short circuit. But to do this to a person it's just horrible, It's just horrible. And it shows how desperate the neuroscientists are. They're like Dr. Mengele's, mad Dr. Mengele's on the loose. And also what is very concerning is the fact that so many people who haven't recorded this, they haven't played it back, they haven't got a recorder and left it near the people and analysed it when they've got home and looped things and worked out what's going on. They've just took it as face value that this is happening. And a lot of them will be out of the system. Nobody will believe them. Who would believe this? How do you explain it? It's took me a long time to try and explain this. I think about 20 minutes or something. The average person hasn't got the attention span of 20 minutes to listen to how this might be done and what's being done. And that is the whole purpose not purpose, but that is what they're relying on, that people won't be able to understand it, that the technology sounds too way out, and just put the person away, drug them up. And that's easier for people to deal with than to actually believe that what is being done is this sort of stuff. You know, they'll believe that the mobile phones and tablets and stuff can do all these amazing things. But when you introduce the brain, which is an electrical organ, into it, they don't want to believe it. So it's concerning how long this has been going on. Probably decades this has been used for. Other similar technologies, in order to eventually mind control the population, because that's what it does. Thank you. God bless.